Hello, this is Dennis. I sing in a band called Refused, and I'm here to break down our new album, War Music. I hope you're going to enjoy this. I think Freedom for us was a transitional record. We hadn't written music together for like 14 years or something like that, 15 years. So it was like a learning process, and it was one of those things that we had to kind of identify who we were as a band and as people, you know? So I think that a lot of the experimentation that went into Freedom is what made War Music possible. If you look at Freedom as like a stepping stone, because I mean, that's what it was. Like for a long time, Refused was very disconnected from who we were, and Freedom was our way of kind of taking back that power. We like to play music and we like to continue on with a band, and we don't want to be like a nostalgia act. And I mean, I'm sure we could have probably just done Shape of Punk to Come for a long time, but it's not interesting because we are artists. We're people that always like to create and push ourselves. Quite early on, after we were done with the Freedom touring cycle, that there was new songs, new ideas, and we knew immediately that, okay, now it's time to make the next record. So it wasn't like a difficult process or a difficult, you know, choice. It was just very natural. I mean, the process of the record is a bit weird. We started off a bit more than 2 years ago. We started recording basic like tracking on an island on the coast of Sweden. But to be honest, we weren't really ready. It was more like drafts and ideas, and then we recorded a bunch of stuff. And then David and Chris, our drummer and guitar player, actually took it and they produced the record, and we ended up doing the record in different studios around Stockholm, and a very much like a mix of, you know, we'll do a couple of days with guitar over here, and then I'll fly down to Stockholm to do vocals for a day or two, and I go home, and then David calls me and is like, oh, we changed the lyric, you know, we changed the chorus on that one, you have to fly back and do more vocals. So there's a lot of piecing parts together and rearranging. And I mean, even to when the record was done, mastered, I was like, mastering is like the final stage. You mix the record and then you master the record, and when the record's mastered, it's done. But then when the record's mastered, Dave called me, it was like, oh, the intro of that song, we have to change that. So even into like the final phase of the recording, we keep changing stuff. It's very much a reaction to Freedom. Freedom, we did the whole like, let's go to America, let's work with a big time producer, and you know, go to LA for 6 weeks and record. And then this time around, I mean, it is very much a DIY process. I mean, all the studios we recorded in are just friend studios, which is kind of similar to when we did Shape of Punk to Come, because most of that record was done by ourselves. Like we came up with the ideas and we did a lot of that work ourselves. So it's quite similar to that process of piecing things together. We made a very conscious effort to be way more direct. I mean, it's a way more in-your-face record, and that's a huge contrast to Freedom. That Freedom's a bit clever, like in the worst way or in the best way. I mean, we're trying to be really smart, and we're like a bit smug about it. We're like, haha, that's very clever. But War Music is way more direct and way more violent, I must say. So there's a lot of contrast from those two records. Yeah, I mean, if you name a record War Music, it has to be like in your face. Which is also funny because the last record was called Freedom, and the new one is War Music, which also, it wasn't even intentional. Like we came up with the title after the record was done, and David sent me a bunch of titles. I'm like, oh, War Music, that's actually a really good title. And then after a while, I'm like, oh wait, it's the exact opposite of Freedom. So, you know, but that's like a coincidence, but it's a good coincidence. We didn't intend to make a concept album. When we started writing, it was just more like, we actually, this is funny, because we had an idea to make a concept album, but about something completely different. I mean, David actually sat down and talked about this concept album idea that we had, and then we looked at the world and we're like, no, it's not the time to make that kind of a self-indulgent concept album, so let's make a record about like the way the world looks right now and all the things that goes on. But then if you look at the record and you follow the thread of the lyrics and what it is very much a concept album about late-day capitalism, about what it does to us and how it works and how it affects people and what you can do about it. But that wasn't an intention to begin with, but it was just when everything was coming together, it was more and more focus on, yeah, this is actually what this is about. It is kind of the same things we've been singing about for our entire lives, you know, talking about these political issues and talking about capitalism and so on and so forth. And in the 90s, when we were a band, we were very much a part of a scene. Like, we were a hardcore punk band, and we were in that world. So everybody in that world kind of knew what we were saying, and they were like, okay, we agree on this. When we broke up in 98, we became like a big rock band, totally out of our control. It was just like, our band just became big, and then, so when we got back together in 2012, we were a very different band. The crowds at our shows were very different, and not at all what they were in the 90s. To do this type of record now and to talk about these issues, it's like we're getting even better and more feedback now than we got in the 90s, and the things that we sing about are even now more relevant because there's a wider audience that understands what we're saying.